SEO, I like to say, is the gathering side to the hunting side. So it's the gardening and gathering. What SEOs will do is we will, especially in the beginning when PPC people are out hunting, we will find the right soil. We'll go find, pick the berries, get the right seeds of plants we want to grow.
Today we're joined by my friend Ryan Kemp at a beautiful West Palm Beach, about 40 minutes south of where I live in Port St. Lucie. He's an SEO expert. He's from South Africa, so he has an awesome accent, and he gives one of the best comparison/analogies to what SEO is, so you can picture it in your mind and how it works for you and your company. And you will be able to picture it in your mind and it'll stick. So you're going to love that, and you're going to hear it in just a few moments on the next episode of the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm here with a new friend, kind of in the next city over from me. I'm in Port St. Lucie, Florida. He is down in beautiful West Palm Beach, and he is an SEO expert. I'm going to use the word expert. He can maybe, talk if that's true or not when he gets a chance to introduce himself. But guys, I will let him also share more details. But he's doing SEO for a huge law firm right now and starting his own agency with his brother. There's a ton that we can dive in and pick apart, but this one's going to be a blast because I've already had a blast talking before we started filming and recording on marketing. But pass off to you, Ryan Kemp. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you got going on there in South Florida.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. Excited for my first real podcast interview and to talk about SEO. I'm one of those weird nerds that loves what I do. I love SEO. I love everything digital marketing. So when I get the chance to talk about it, I always jump to that chance. You're going to have to cut me off and stop me more than I'm going to probably stop myself. So apologies in advance. But a little bit about me. My name's Ryan Kemp. I am South African. That's why you'll hear that accent. I get British and Australian quite a bit, so no worries if that's ever what anyone thinks in advance. But I'm originally from South Africa, living in West Palm Beach, Florida now. And as you mentioned, I worked for one of the bigger law firms in the area. They used to be called Stein, Isco and Green. Now they're called Stein, Green and Finer. If you're from South Florida, you've heard the ads probably a million times on TV and you've grown up with them. So I consider it a privilege to work for such a great firm. I'm in transition now. My brother's he's opened up a web development firm, and he's been doing that for a couple years. And he continues to get asked about digital marketing, which is what I do. And in the past, I'll jump on calls with them. I'll talk to clients. I'll send them strategies for free, because they're a client of my brother's. But it's getting to the point where, especially now with everything that's happened in the last 2 years, businesses are rushing to go online. And we're just getting more and more requests for it and more businesses that need help kind of developing their online presence. So I decided to transition away from the law firm and work full-time at the agency, which is Zulu Shack Creative. We're based out of South Florida too, and it's been an exciting and also difficult and really interesting time, and that's kind of where I'm at now. A little bit about my background. I've been in SEO for almost 6 years, and I started at an agency. It was sort of a whim. I knew someone in my college class, because I studied journalism, who was working for a digital marketing agency, and I was like, okay, what's that? She said she does SEO. I had to look it up. I was like, SEO? I mean, this was like the end of 2015. I was like, what is SEO? I didn't even pronounce it SEO. I was like, she does SEO? What is that? So I looked it up, and I was like, oh, it has a lot to do with writing. So I like that. And went in, joined the team there, worked for that agency for 3 years, left as the director of SEO. And then went to an investing firm in South Florida called Banyan Hill Publishing, then to Stein, Green and Finer, and now to my own agency. So it's what I've lived and breathed for the last almost 6 years, and I absolutely love it. So that's a little bit about me.
Man, well, I know we can dive into a lot of this, and welcome, obviously, to South Florida. I know you've been here for a while, but from South Africa. I do love your accent, and I probably would have been one of the people that would have said the same thing, oh, Australian or something, because I'm just so bad with accents. But
That's okay. I mean, I get it often, so no worries.
so to dive into the SEO world, what would you, obviously, when I start talking SEO with clients, I will always, say, oh, SEO, it stands for search engine optimization, and it's the work that goes into your website to help it rank on Google. That's like my quick, boom, little elevator pitch on it, and very condensed. What would be yours if you were to kind of break apart, in your own words, what is SEO if you were to kind of explain it to a business that was interested in it?
So I have noticed it's become easier, which is one thing I like because more and more people know what SEO is. But I have this analogy I've used for years now, and this analogy, worked back in the day when people didn't understand SEO, but it works now as well because it's got that sense of storytelling to it. So it's a great analogy to kind of shape the idea of what it is to a client. So I use the analogy to also explain sort of digital marketing as a whole. So I talk about SEO and PPC and the big differences there as well. So I'll always start with the client and tell them that their business is the village. We imagine sort of like a tribal landscape. They're the village, and that's their company, that's their business, that's their website. And we need to bring resources back to that website to sustain it. So there's two ways of going about this. And the first way is we can go hunting. So we get a bunch of the stronger members together, the most skilled members. We get we sharpen our spears, we get everything ready, and we expend a lot of energy over a short period of time, the next day or two, hunting down this big buck. And we finally get the buck, and we have to drag it all the way back to the village. And when it's finally there, there's a celebration, we feast, everyone eats for 2 days straight, we're good. After that, though, we have to go out and hunt again. And we have to basically expend the same amount of energy, a large portion of energy, finding a buck, getting it, doing the same thing, repeating the process. So that's PPC, that's pay-per-click. Those are the ads you see at the top of Google and, some of the ads you'll see on Amazon, and that's that form of digital marketing. SEO, I like to say, is the gathering side to the hunting side. So it's the gardening and gathering. What SEOs will do is we will, especially in the beginning when PPC people are out hunting, we will find the right soil. We'll go pick the berries, get the right seeds of plants we want to grow. We'll find the right soil, we'll find the right amount of sunlight, we'll find the place where we get the most rain, the most shelter. We'll start planting those seeds. And some seeds need to be planted in this soil, seeds need to be planted in this soil this far apart from each other, this close to each other. Some need direct sunlight, some need indirect sunlight, some need a ton of water, some need less. So it's a little bit of a guessing game, figuring out exactly where these need to go, but we get better as we learn, and we land up creating this fantastic garden that within a year, we're just pulling the fruit from. We don't have to go hunting. We don't have to go out finding anything. It's right next to the village. We go and we pick the fruits when we need them. And as we continue to cultivate that garden, it gets bigger. It sort of becomes self-sustaining as well. And the seeds we get from those fruits, we create an even bigger garden. And as long as we do some form of maintenance, weeding and watering and shade and sunlight, that garden is just going to continue to grow. So that's where I think SEO comes in. And those are the big differences there. And that's what I like to tell clients.
I will tell you that is the best analogy that I've ever heard with it. It's way better than the one I use where I get more like data and boringness. So I'm totally going to steal that from you, if that's all right. And what I love about that is in the world of SEO, when I'm explaining it to clients, I think they're like, oh, so once I get to the first page, I'm good. Like I don't have to pay for that type of work anymore. Isn't it like a set it and forget it type of thing? And you're like, to explain it again for somebody who doesn't understand it, it's hard to explain it. But using that analogy to go, hey, it's just like you said, the garden. You got a garden, cool. You can't just get a garden and leave it alone. You gotta weed it. You gotta water it. You gotta attend to it, or maybe you pull up some of the ones that aren't producing anymore. And you put a new one down. There's all this work you have to continually to do, but it's less work than it would be to plant a new garden every single day or every single month. So that. It really does just kind of check all the boxes in my head. I can't think of anything that doesn't really work. So kudos to you for it. You need to I think do a book and put that in a book somewhere because it's a good one. Or make a video and make it go viral or something.
I should. You're the first, I think, real SEO I've ever told that to, because I pitch it to clients. And then when I was the director at SEO, I told my team about that analogy and they used it. But you're the first real digital marketer I've told it to. So to hear your reaction, yeah, maybe I gotta do a video or something.
And if you don't, I guess I can do it and say, hey guys, I had this idea today for this analogy. It's all right.
No, you know what? It's fine. Just link to me. As long as I get a link back, I'm totally
okay. You got a website already that's up, or do you have to wait for that?
We do have a website that's up at the moment. Still a semi-work in progress. It was put up by my brother who's the dev. I got to get in there with my SEO skills and really flesh it out. And at the moment, that's obviously the plan. And I hope I don't fall into that category where a plumber's toilet's always leaking. Where because I'm an SEO and I'm doing it for everyone else, I won't do it for my own site. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm not sure yet.
And that opened up a whole different area we can go into that I love. So I've noticed that in the marketing world, definitely will 100% admit our marketing is not the best marketing in the world, and there's always room for improvement on our side. But I do notice that from other marketers. I feel like we let our own marketing suffer, or we don't do a very good job at our own stuff. And I just find that so interesting because I've seen that in, like you just mentioned, the plumber. I remember my old landscaper I had, his yard was horrible, and I just thought that was hilarious. And I know we had an irrigation guy come to the house one time, and he goes, I don't even have irrigation at my house. And I was just like, what? Like, it's so interesting how that, like, people let their own stuff suffer. And so one of the things that I'm actually teaching a presentation on this later this year is how, and I got this from, I mentioned this on the other episodes of the podcast, but Donald Miller with a company called Storybrand out of Tennessee. And one of the things he mentions is we got to be clear, not cute and clever. And I think as marketers, we want to be cute and clever a lot. We want to say, oh, I thought of this sweet tagline, and if you read into it, it means this, but it also has this double meaning. Like, we try and get all cute and clever, thinking it's going to help us grow and be more successful, but Donald Miller would argue that and say you just need to be clear. Like, literally just say what you do, what you are, and what you handle. And my perfect example that I'm going to give in this presentation is rewind a little bit. So my company, I started everything when I was a junior in high school. I was up in Alaska. And up in Alaska, I was like, oh man, I got a perfect tagline. So I had the company name, Slater Strategies, and my tagline was taking your business north. And I was like, oh, there's a double meaning here. I'm going to make your business grow. North is going up. It's going to grow. And then if I ever got a client in, they call it the lower 48, all the other states, so I'm going to take your business north to Alaska to work on it. And all these double meanings I thought was really cool. And people always complimented it, but I never nobody's like, oh, I hired you because you're a cool tagline. And so I just kind of, after learning from Donald Miller and reevaluating myself, I changed all of it last year. And I changed from taking your business north, which of course now I'm operating out of Florida, but the company's still based in Alaska, technically, like all that fun stuff. But I changed my tagline to finally marketing that works, which is obviously the title of the podcast. And I wanted it, I know talking to, and I know you've had this probably situation too, where you talk to people and they're like, I tried this and it didn't work. I tried this and it didn't work. I wasted a lot of money. And I wanted people to be able to come to us and go, finally, marketing that works here. And so it was clear, people could read it and go, oh, it's a marketing company, because of course Slater Strategies doesn't tell you what I am. I could be freaking anything with that name. So I had to have a good tagline and be clear. And so I know I went on a huge tangent on that one, but I think just kind of going off of that, as marketers, I think a lot of times we're really bad at doing it for ourselves. So I don't know if you guys already have a tagline and all that stuff for yours, but I'd be the same thing to you, is be clear with whatever you're doing and whatever you're offering, which sounds like a heavy dose of web and SEO, which I think should be somewhere in that tagline, mission statement, or something that you guys are going to do.
No, that is great advice. I appreciate that, because we haven't even gotten into the tagline realm, but I can already see that, our company name has got a couple looks. People are like, what is that? And to us, it makes sense because of where we're from. So it's called Zulu Shack Creative. And I just had someone actually today, funnily enough, at the firm go, Zulu? What's Zulu? And I was like, oh boy, this is probably not a good thing. So I'm like, uh-oh, like bells already going off. But I had to explain, like, Zulu is a tribe in South Africa, and we're sort of modeling, there's a whole thing we're modeling about Shaka Zulu, which was like the Alexander the Great of Africa. And my brother and I grew up hearing his stories. So that's our thing where we get, you can tell, I guess I like telling stories. That's my thing. But so that was sort of our romantic view of what we're doing, and who we aspire to be, but it isn't clear, and we don't have a tagline yet. I love your tagline because not only is it like, obviously tells you what you do, but it's like there's that emotion of like finally. It sort of carves out that like, oh, for the people that are like, man, I just want something that works. You're the final solution in that realm. So I really love it. I do dig that. I got to get on that. That's my next
Oh,
step is taglines and figuring out how to be clear. So I appreciate that.
and I'm a sucker for these ly words, and I'll explain why. Which my mom, if she listens to this episode, she'll get a kick out of it because when I've written some like children's books that have never been published. Nobody even knows about it, but I want to eventually publish these children's books I've written. Well, I went to when I was in, gosh, I think it was middle school. I think I was actually even in high school, to be honest with you, Ryan. My mom sent me to this writing class at this lady's house. Older lady, sweet, one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my entire life. And so she was big on writing, and she was giving me like ideas and inspiration and how to write better. And because I just never was good at it, but I had all these ideas for these children's books and papers for school. So she did a thing, and I don't know, I've always been like money focused, money driven when I see things. So she would get out this big, huge jar of coins, and she'd go, okay, so I want you to write a paragraph. And anytime you use really good words, you'll get 25 cents. And if you use ly words in a good way, you get 75 cents or $1 or something like that. And I was like, okay. And so I remember she said the biggest thing is if you could start a paragraph with an ly word, it helps the paragraph just be very successful or something. So when I made my tagline, I thought of her, and I was like, oh my goodness, finally! She would have been so proud. I would have got $1 for that word because she would have loved it. So there's a reason, I guess, why she ingrained that to me, which makes me remind me I need to reach out to her and tell her that because she'd probably get a kick out of it. So yeah, tagline, it's important, and I love the name of your company. But you're exactly right. I'm like, okay, what exactly is it? Because is it the full name? You said, what's the full name of the company?
Full name is Zulu Shack Creative. So creative
Okay.
gives you maybe a tiny bit of a clue, but there's nothing in there. So the tagline's going to be important. I got to get on that.
I will say the creative. When I think of that, I do think of design, not like interior design. I do think like for me, now granted, I'm in the industry, so I would definitely talk to people who aren't because I'm biased. But I think, oh, creative, they're definitely some type of agency. But what do they? Is there a focus specifically that they're focusing on? So, and then you're so torn too. I know you mentioned more people do know the SEO now, which that is very true. People will come to us asking for it, even though they don't really understand maybe what it is. They just like, I know I need this SEO thing you're talking about.
So Ryan, you've been doing this for a while now, helping companies with SEO, and I would again, consider you an SEO expert. So when you go into working with these companies, is there a specific place you start? Like you go, we're going to look at, the website. Oh, it's not fast, or it's not mobile friendly, which hopefully everybody's mobile friendly by now. I mean, what is that go-to thing when you start with a company that you look at to see?
I think that's a really good question. And I think sometimes with SEO, it's sort of like, a bunch of chefs, a bunch of recipes, and there might not be the same answer for everything. But I do think in a good place to start with, the minutia and the details might be slightly different, but I think most SEOs have a sort of a general idea of where to go. I mean, if we're talking about right in the beginning, after, we've been contracted and the clients want to get started, obviously the first place to go is an onboarding call. We take care of a lot of the questions, and we take care of a lot of I want to say the details that maybe even the client won't know. And we bring a couple things up to the surface. Cost per acquisition for some of the smaller businesses, they might not necessarily have that completely figured out, or who their competitors are. Some of these brick and mortar businesses think their competitor's just the guy in the same plaza, or maybe a mile down the road, which can be the case. But also online now, they're sort of exposed to a number of different competitors. So there's that too. But when I'm actually looking at a website and I'm ready to go, I think the first thing I will do is usually a crawling and indexing audit. It's more important for bigger websites, definitely, like that without a doubt has to be done first. For smaller websites, maybe not as much, but it's still worthwhile. And a crawling and indexing audit is basically looking at, okay, so how many pages are being crawled? And how many pages are, is the Google spider ignoring completely? Why are they ignoring those pages? Are they duplicates? Do they have the incorrect canonical tags? Are these, do these pages have redirects, which means that the Google crawler has to hit the page, hit an additional page, and hit a third page to get to where it's going. And so it just lands up excluding the page altogether. And that's called a redirect chain. Do they have a bunch of those? Are there entire sections of the website that are just being completely passed over? So I'll basically run a crawl on a program called Screaming Frog. And I'll also look at the Google Search Console. And, Google will give me a lot of good insights. There's this idea with SEO sometimes, and I think part of it is true and part of it is not true. But the idea with search, with SEOs is that Google is sort of the enemy, and they're keeping the information of why something isn't working from you. While it is true in some sense that we don't understand the algorithm, Google does give you a lot of information. It's just sorting through it is a real, can be a real project, can be a real difficult, time-consuming project. So in Search Console, Google will tell you what's going on. They'll tell you crawlers are hitting your site and why they've excluded certain pages. They'll tell you, here's your sitemap. We've indexed this many pages from your sitemap, but we've also found, an additional 20% of pages that we've indexed weren't even included in the sitemap. And where a lot of people might just go, okay, whatever. No, that's Google telling you that your site isn't 100% optimally optimized, I guess.
Okay.
So yeah, with big websites, that tends to be a huge issue. There's entire sections of the site that are, are seen as duplicates. If they've got product pages, the search results of each product page, if you go to like a website and you type in like, kitchen supplies, that page might get indexed, but it's changing all the time. Sometimes there's no results. So then it sends out a soft 404. And Google's telling you, hey, with, all these things are giving users a bad experience on your site. So if you fix it, we'll rank you higher because you're doing what Google ultimately wants, which is you're providing valuable insights and information to the user. So those crawling audits I think are pretty invaluable. And then an indexing audit is just sort of taking that information to the next level and doing it more on site. Okay, so how are your pages interlinking? Do you have like a nice, spider web? I mean, it's called a website and we use the term spider and all that good stuff. Does it look like a web? Is it flowing out in the right directions? Are the pages that are on the far end of the website, are they being linked to? And are they linking back? And also, how many clicks does it take to get to those pages? If it takes you 4 clicks to get to an important page, your structure of your website isn't 100% optimized, and you should take those pages and put them in the nav, or at least make them 1 or 2 clicks away from the actual crawl. So that's usually where I'll start for websites. And then the second thing that I'll go into usually is a strategy. Or actually, I'm sorry, even before that, I'll do, strategy comes next. But before that, I'll do something like, a regular website audit, looking at the keywords that they're ranking for, the pages that are ranking really well, the traffic that's coming into those pages. And then I also look at the pages that aren't ranking well and how are they affecting the site. If those pages don't, get a lot of traffic and we've got maybe 80% of your pages are getting very minimal traffic, they're taking up crawl budget, they're inefficient, they're slowing down the website, and there's a reason why Google isn't indexing and ranking them. So I'll take a look at those. I'll see what keywords need to be added, what pages maybe need to be combined or completely removed. I'll look at, a keyword strategy in general. Okay, we know we're ranking for these pages, but what does the client want to rank for? What do you want your website to rank for? And are we anywhere close to that? Do we have pages for those specific keywords, products, or services? So I'll usually do a lot of analysis, a lot of keyword analysis. I'll jump into competitor analysis while I'm doing all of this, because as much as, competitor analysis is extremely important, I sort of see it bleeding into everything else you do. So when you're doing keyword research, competitors are coming up all the time. When you're doing, local SEO research, that's all competitors. Backlink research, you're looking at competitors. So I feel like competitor research is sort of mingled into what you're already doing. And then finally, I'll create a strategy. And I like to lay them out on a quarterly basis and tell the client, okay, for Q1, I'll usually send it a quarter in advance. So like I'm actually sending out a ton of Q1 strategies right now. And it's time consuming. You've got to, reevaluate what you've done for the current quarter. You've got to look at, what you hit, what you haven't hit, opportunities, issues that have come up. And then you've got to kind of map out what the next quarter is going to be. And I like to be pretty thorough with clients. I like to be really transparent, really thorough, tell them this is what I think we should do January. This is what I think we should do February and March. And as much as we can, we're going to try, stick to that plan. Sometimes things come up, things happen. But I think it's good to lay out a good strategy. And then the final thing is to actually do the work. The tedious work of link building, the fun side of content creating, interlinking on the site, fixing some of these crawling issues, some of these technical SEO issues. So you get to kind of do that. And I would say that's, our agency does everything from start to finish in-house. So we have our hands on all those pieces. From onboarding all the way through to content creation and link building, that's kind of our process. That was a very long answer.
That was good. No, good deal, man. I went to the bathroom, grabbed a cup of coffee, and came back. And
Sorry.
Just kidding. That was good. No, so I'm assuming that with all that stuff you're doing, software is your friend. Do you guys have like softwares that are helping you, or is it really like manual? Like Ryan is going into the website and he is like finding all this stuff. Are you having softwares help you to be more efficient?
Definitely some use of softwares as well. For the bigger websites, there is a little bit more manual, scraping and looking at the data. But there's a lot of cool tools like, Google Search Console, I mentioned, Analytics, Screaming Frog, which acts like a Google crawler, actually. So you get some really good information. SEMrush and Ahrefs. So it's a little bit of both.
I'd heard of one recently. It was called, and I've never used it. I heard it was called Market Goo, and it was a software you could put on your website, and it tells you like, here are things you need to change on your website or do to make your SEO better. And it's been around for a while. I guess I'm assuming it works. Otherwise, it would be out of business. But what's your take on softwares like that you can plug into your website? And maybe you've never heard of one before, but like there's some out there you can just like plug it in there, and it tells you things you should do to improve your SEO.
I think that they're getting better. I don't think that they're 100% there yet. I think you still need, a person to kind of look through and analyze the data. But from what I'm seeing, there are some interesting softwares out there, and they are getting better. One that comes to mind is, I think it's called Jarvis AI, or it used to be called Jarvis AI. Now it's called Content AI. And you can input a bunch of keywords. You can input, the website you want, and you can input a couple blocks of text, and it will actually write content for you. It's not, Shakespeare or anything, but in a pinch, it could be good for a basis of how to write an article. So for someone who's doing SEO themselves, by themselves, that don't like to trudge through all the work, they could use something like that to at least give them the starting 500 words, because it's easier to edit than to write. So I think softwares are getting there, and that's a good example of one as well.
Kemp, yeah, no, I have heard of Jarvis. We've used it before, and I know it's not. It is still good. It's not perfect. Yeah, of course. Like I'm reading and going, people don't talk like that type of thing. So you have to kind of like help it along, like you said, editing it, which is way easier than writing. I get thankfully I'm not a writer, but I sit down, I go, I got nothing, and then if I do write it, it's not good. So, but no, thankfully, yeah, softwares, like you said, are getting better. AI is unbelievable. The things that AI can do. Which those listening that don't know AI, artificial intelligence, these people have sat down and made these computers do things that are just incredible. I don't even know how that world works, but I'm thankful for those that have figured out the AI world so that we can use them to help us out. Do you specifically with your business, SEO, thankfully it's a term now. I think people they know, they hear it, they go, oh yeah, I've heard of that. It's ranking on Google type of thing. At least I feel like 10 years ago you mentioned it. People have no idea what the heck you're talking about. So when you go to somebody though, let's say you talk to a local dry cleaner, one location, they're like, I need some SEO on my site. And then you go to somebody, the Walmart Corporation, Walmart Supercenter, and they're like, I want SEO done for Walmart.com. How does it differ for you? Like when you talk about somebody coming to you for this little small mom and pop, I need to rank in one city, to Walmart has locations all across the world that you need to help SEO. I don't know how long of an answer that could even be. It could be like probably a couple hour answer for that one. But what would you say like the biggest difference for those two that you have to do to make them both successful?
It's an interesting question because SEO sort of has general rules, but yeah, I think personally you do completely different SEO for a large corporation than from a small website, and then you do completely different SEO for a service company than from a product from like an e-commerce company. I mean, in some ways, like again, there are standards, but to answer the question about a big corporation versus a mom and pop, I think one of the biggest differences I see is just resources. So the bigger companies that I've done, the quote unquote like Walmarts, they have a lot of their own in-house teams, in-house dev teams, in-house social media team, in-house even content team sometimes, or they've been working with another content agency for a long time. So I've seen my role primarily for those to be technical SEO. So they want something very specific, and that's kind of what they go for. They want like a crawling and indexing audit, for example, or like an on-page audit. Whereas the small mom and pop places, they need everything. They want you to do absolutely everything. So I guess, that doesn't necessarily mean it's two different types of SEO, maybe just two different approaches of what's important. But I would say, and I don't know if you have this experience too, but mom and pop stores, like, to do local SEO, I think there's a lot more just, the basic SEO fundamentals. Get reviews on your GMB, write good content, interlink it well, get links from other websites, make sure your site runs well. But for a lot of the bigger websites, there just seems like there's always more challenges. And it's not just about writing content every week or every month. It's about real strategizing based on the e-commerce site, the database, how the sites are crawled. So it just gets a little bit more technical, in my opinion. What are you like? I'm interested to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, we've never done anything for SEO for like a huge multi-state place corporation. We've never done that. It's only ever been local, which we've had great success with doing that. And like you just said, all the basic stuff. So meta tags, making sure the H1, H2, all that stuff is good. And then Google reviews. I push Google reviews probably more than anything. We do push listings a lot too, making sure you're just on as many listing directories as possible. Is one of the big pieces we'll push. But and we've had good success with that. I don't even know if I was to be approached by a huge corporation, I would be like, I'd feel weird pitching them something because I've never done it. So I'd be calling Ryan probably like, hey Ryan, you want a client referral? Because I would never want to sell somebody something that I'm not confident in my deliverables that I could do for it, and not want to just out of my scope. Is that, by the way, is that something I could ever pass over to you if that does happen? Have you done like that type of SEO before?
Please do. Yeah, I actually I've white labeled to a couple agencies, so I can't talk about the clients, but big clients, and the projects just get extremely specific. So it'll be like, an audit, but it's literally for just one section of the site, one subfolder, or keyword research because they're going to try and make landing pages to compete with a competitor. And, it just gets very, very, very detailed and specific, but please pass it on. I'd be happy to share in the wealth, the experience, and all the good stuff.
All right, perfect. Well, I have one last question for you, or I guess two, technically. The first one is, if somebody is listening and they have a small business and they were so there's a two-part, I guess, to this question. Oh, goodness. Okay, so first part is, how long, if they were to hire you to do something for a local restaurant, local, whatever it is, mom and pop shop, how much SEO, time in SEO would they be paying you to do every month and help them just progress to get to the first page of Google? And how much, if they were to try and do it on their own, would you say? So maybe they pay you, and it's, again, you answer this, but like it's 5 hours if they hire you, but if they were doing it on their own, it might be 20 hours because they have to like learn some other things or hire it out on Fiverr or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. I think it depends on the client, but I would go anywhere between 5 and 15 hours just to get a steady increase of their ranks, month over month. I think I can't remember her name, Taylor Marley. Man, I'll have to get the name after this and send it to you. But there was someone on the Google team actually said SEO takes anywhere between 4 and 10 months, and they're on record saying it. And so, yeah, I would tell them it'd be like, 5 to 15 hours over 4 to 10 months. If they want the results a little bit sooner, I would tell them, obviously, then it's like 40 hours or whatever it is to get those, to get closer to the 4-month mark. But I usually think it's healthy to go anywhere between 5 and 15. And in terms of how long it might take the client, I think it's exponentially longer, because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is they have to do all the research, look through all the noise, find the right solution, and then do the research, like do the analysis and then implement. So something that might take, an SEO 1 hour could be up to 5 hours. And again, I don't think they're going to be sitting there doing it for 5 hours. So they do it for half an hour. They're like, oh my God, metadata? They stop and then they try to pick it back up maybe tomorrow and they have to reread what they did. I think, I honestly think it's an order of magnitude of at least 5 times more just because they have to learn.
I agree. So when you say real quick, the 5 to 15 hours that in the 4 to 10 months time span, which we always tell clients anywhere from 3 to 6 months, typically they'll see obviously movement, but first page, ranking. So you're right in that window, of course. But when you say 5 to 15 hours, are you saying 5 to 15 hours a month, a week, or over that whole span of 6 months, a total of 5 to 15 hours that you're working on it?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was saying 5 to 15 a month.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you at in that range, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no. So that's why I was curious, because I would say on average for the small business, it's typically between that 5 to 10 hours. That's why I was like, oh gosh, is he doing 5 to 15 hours every 6 months? Like, how the heck is he doing that? So 5 to 10 hours or so a month to make sure, for depending on each client. Every client's different.
Mm-hmm.
But man, well, that was Brian. Like, I've loved our conversation today. The final question I have for you is, I would love you to share how can people get in contact with Ryan and his awesome named agency if they want to get in touch with you?
I appreciate that. Yeah. So we are Zulu Shack Creative, named because my brother and I are obviously from South Africa. So you can, find us at zulushack.com, or you can, find us on Facebook, Zulu Shack Creative. And those are probably the 2 best ways to go about it. And I I had a real blast talking about this. I love talking SEO. So just getting on these conversations with you, I'm like, yes, like this is like a highlight. So I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Wish you nothing but the best. And like I said, we're only about 45 minutes away from each other, so we should get together for some coffee soon.
Definitely. Sounds good.
Thanks, man.
Well, as you're probably starting to learn, SEO is a pretty technical service. There's a lot of pieces to it, but it's a very, very important service. And when you have somebody like Ryan with his company who's there to help you get those steps put in place, you're going to be in good hands. And you are obviously in good hands with Ryan. I hope you guys enjoyed that analogy about the going hunting and the farming and how picturing SEO versus ads, just so you can picture it. There's ads have their place. They can be expensive, but hey, if you want to be on the first page tomorrow, ads are where you need to go. SEO is that long-term one. You're investing in your ranking, and there's so much value in that. Of course, there is value in ads. I'm not going to discount that, but just tons of value in SEO. And I love that analogy. So Ryan, thanks for sharing that one with me. And wish you nothing but the best. And everybody, we'll be here next week with another awesome guest as usual. So we'll see you next week on the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. We'll see you then.